Now, gait disturbances in the industrial setting are many because, like in the general population, injured workers bring their health history with them to the industrial setting, and as a result, the workplace is comprised of people with a variety of concurrent health conditions and other issues. And combined with industrial injury, pre-existing health conditions can manifest in the gait. And there's several different types of characteristic patterns, and I'd like to go over several of the abnormal named gait signs that you'll run across or that you may be familiar with. And the first one is the antalgic gait, and this is described in the AMA guides. The antalgic gait describes a leaning away from pain. Now, the word antalgia comes from the 18th century Greek word anti-algos, which means basically leaning away from pain. And with pain, the injured worker will be observed to lean away from or to unweight a painful part. For example, in the case of right-sided lower back pain, the injured worker will be observed to lean to the left in order to get away from the pain. So with right-sided lower back pain, the injured worker will lean to the left to anti-algos to get away from the pain. You can observe this simply in the postural examination. You would observe the injured worker to posture to the left, and this might be even exaggerated in the gait in order to get away from the painful right-sided lower back pain. As another example, in the case of a sprain of the lateral talofibular ligaments, severe ankle sprain, the injured worker would be observed to shorten the stance phase on the right foot. In this case, if we're talking about the right foot, would be observed to shorten the stance phase of the right foot in order to get away from or to get off of the pain. And you would see that the stance phase and the swing phases of gait approach a 50-50 time ratio, or even a lesser amount of time spent in the stance phase of gait, depending upon the amount of pain in that injured ankle. The level of pain, therefore, determines the degree of antalgia that you might observe. There is many instances where we will see a broadened base of gait. And a broad base gait is found in many different types of conditions. It's found in infectious conditions, congenital conditions, developmental disorders, traumatic disorders, etc. And this is due to an impairment of the ability to coordinate the movements required for normal walking, because normal walking requires normal motor function and also requires sensory input from the neurologic system in coordination of the motor output programs involved with a normal gait cycle. So therefore, difficulty with balance and difficulty with coordinating the movements required for normal walking requires the need to widen the base of support in order to provide additional balance. And I'm sure you're familiar with the broad-based gait yourself. In fact, anyone who's gotten up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom is familiar with the broad-based gait. You get up in the middle of the night and the room is dark and the hallway is dark, and you have to make it to the bathroom without turning on the lights. Otherwise, not only will your eyeballs freak out, but if you're married, your spouse will as well. And it's the lack of sensory input through the eyes that reflexively causes the gait to broaden in order to provide balance and prevent lateral reeling. And I remember a recent recent episode in my own house where I got up in the middle of the night and I was leaving early for appointments, and I was trying to maneuver around the house without disturbing my spouse, and it was dark, and I thought I was going in a straight line, but it turns out I was laterally reeling because even though I was walking with a broad base of support, the lack of visual input through the eyes fouled up my motor patterns, and I crashed into the grandfather clock and caused all the bells and bongs in the grandfather clock to make a lot of noise. So as hard as I was trying to be quiet and unobtrusive, made quite a racket due to this very thing, the lack of proper sensory feedback. And in this case it was due to the room being dark, but in the presence of neurologic conditions such as peripheral neuropathy in the feet, for example, an inability to feel the feet, that lack of sensory input from the feet causes a difficulty with balance and a difficulty with coordinating movements, and so reflexively there's a broadening of the base of gait in order to compensate for those impairments. There is the Trendelenburg Gate. This is also described in the AMA guides, and the Trendelenburg Gate was first described in the 19th century by Friedrich Trendelenburg when he identified this type of a gait pattern in children with congenital dislocation of the hip. Now Trendelenburg Gate is associated with a variety of both juvenile and adult conditions, all of which have the common feature of weakness of the gluteus medius muscle. And it's the gluteus medius muscle on the weight-bearing side. So what you would see to observation, and considering, for example, the right lower extremity coming in contact with the ground, at heel strike on the right side, the pelvis would suddenly drop inferiorly to the left side, to the unaffected side. And if you've ever seen Trendelenburg Gate, it's a pronounced deviation in gait, and it's accompanied also by a shortened stance phase on the unaffected side, as the affected side quickly moves back to resume its own stance phase. And so with a Trendelenburg Gate, you see gait deviations both in both the stance and the swing phases of both lower extremities. Okay, the steppage gait is also known as the equine gait. This is a named gait sign. Steppage gait is due to weakness of the anterior tibialis muscle, which causes a loss or weakness of ankle dorsiflexion. And what could be some causes of weakness to the anterior tibialis muscle? Well, one thing would be direct trauma to the anterior tibialis muscle itself, perhaps a contusion injury to the front of the leg. Anyone who's ever hit their shin on a door jamb or on a table, coffee table, will know that that direct contusion can cause an instantaneous weakness of the anterior tibialis muscle and make walking interesting. Can also be due to neurologic disorder of the spinal nerve root. Typically we think of the anterior tibialis muscle as being innervated by the L5 nerve root, but also because of multiple innervation and variability, could also be due to a lesion of the L4 nerve root, the S1 nerve root, or possibly even the S2 nerve root, or could be due to damage to the peripheral common peroneal nerve as it passes behind the head of the fibula. And with a steppage gait, what you're going to see is there's an inability to control the ankle through dorsiflexion. inability to dorsiflex the ankle. As a result of weakened dorsiflexion, you're going to see increased hip and knee flexion in order to bring the foot high enough for the toes to clear the ground. Now, depending upon the level of weakness of the anterior tibialis muscle, the steppage may be slight, very slight, exaggerated flexion of the hip and knee, or it may be very profound in the case of complete paralysis of the anterior tibialis muscle. The steppage may be markedly exaggerated, and that's when it becomes known as the equine gait. And if you've ever seen a person with steppage gait, it's quite a pronounced disturbance. I remember when I first saw it, there was a woman in my gym who came in generally about 10 minutes after I did every day, and she would walk across the foyer of the gym and across a long corridor, and you could see her high steppage gait, and her toes would slap the ground, and it was quite an awkward gait. Anyway, just a note and a word from our sponsor. She responded quite well to chiropractic care, and she later went on to travel to all 7 continents, and so she was able to overcome her gait disorder through chiropractic care. Okay, you may see, for example, also a FestaNating Gate. FestaNating Gate is found in central nervous system disorders that cause lower extremity hypertonicity. This type of gait is characterized by difficulty in initiating the gait, difficulty getting started, difficulty getting the legs going. But once the gait gets started, the head and trunk get ahead of the base of support, and the steps become increasingly shortened, and they become jerky, and it becomes difficult to stop, and it appears that the examinee is falling forward, and that they're constantly trying to get their legs to catch up with the falling forward upper body. And you'll see these and other types of disturbances in gait. And there's many other different named gait signs that we won't really go into here, although you may have heard of these, and you may even see these, although probably not as much in an industrial setting or with your injured workers. Examples would include a hysteric gait, an athetotic gait, perhaps a Charcot gait due to trauma and degenerative change of lower extremity joints, particularly in the foot. And all of these gaits can be easily identified to careful observation because they fit Webster's definition of abnormal movements, of labored manner of moving forward on foot, of an unbalanced sequence of movements of the foot. And you'll pick these up. And next in this program, I have several videos, and we'll go over those as examples of different types of gait disturbance. And these examples will help highlight some of the concepts and topics that we've discussed up until this point in time.